like the biggest issue, and I was dealing with it myself, was this whole issue of weight gain, right? Losing weight. And as I've gotten older, it's been harder. It feels like, and when the doctor diagnosed me at 200 pounds, that said, "Hey, you know what? You're knocking on obesity." That really hit hard. And there's, of course, at the time, all of the talk about GLP-1. Now, at the time, I didn't know. I wasn't prescribed one, but I was looking in. I was paying attention that this was something that this medication was out there, and then I'm diagnosed with diabetes, and I'm overweight, and I'm dealing with those things. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, that's what this is about tonight. So we're going to hear from Lindsay Venn here in just a minute, who is a specializes in insulin, and it's learning to understand this whole thing for me, that when you have a big problem, you need a big solution, right? And the solution we typically look for is medications. That seems to be the biggest thing, right? We really have, I say we have really three choices. We can stay sick, we can take the medications, or we could look for an alternative to that, which is really what I did, is looking that way. And so for me, understanding and learning what insulin resistance is, that is an issue that is metabolic. It has to do with how your body handles energy, and we don't hear enough about that. So tonight's or today, this seminar is hugely important. So we're going to address and learn kind of about that background when it comes to dealing with insulin resistance, and what we're not being told, what is not being talked about. And I don't want to sit there and beat a dead horse. It's something that we've been dealing with, and so many of us have been dealing with it, but we don't know because the doctors are not explaining it. Now, you may not like that, you may not like to hear that, but the reality is we're not hearing enough about it. So I'm going to jump right on here and pull Lindsay on. We're going to grab this and share my screen here right out of the gate, and share this guy. There we go. And I think we're sharing now. Let's get this going.
A real expert tonight. This is one of the top experts in the world. She is one of the founding members for the Metabolic Society of Healthcare Practitioners. She helps run Insulin IQ. If you're familiar with Insulin IQ, she has Venn Integrative. Is it Venn Integrative Health or Venn Integrative Nutrition?
Medicine, but yeah.
Venn Integrative Medicine, okay? Third time's the charm. And Lindsay literally works all day, every day with the brightest and best in the world, helping people change their metabolic health, get off their meds when possible, and minimizes suffering. I mean, she is a real life superhero. And Lindsay's going to be talking all about GLP-1 and natural alternatives to it. So Lindsay, take it away.
You're always too kind, Trent. Thank you so much. And thank you to the crannies for their story, because it's a fantastic story.
Yeah,
and we always appreciate the testimonials of where people can get with this. So let me share my screen. As you guys know, I'm very presentation heavy. It makes it hopefully a little bit more educational for everybody when it comes to the topic. And so like Trent said, tonight we're deep diving into GLP-1 hormone. Like he said, you can find me either at Insulin IQ, where I work with Ben Bickman and several others, or Venn Integrative Medicine, just for me.
Is adding chicken broth to dog food actually dangerous?
So Rob, what do you feed your dogs?
Crazy.
I used to think.
So first, GLP-1 hormone, and for anybody who doesn't know, when I'm saying GLP-1, like Trent said, I'm talking about all these new medications. The Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, semaglutide, tirzepatide, there's a variety of names for them. Those are the agonists, but what I'm talking about today is the actual hormone that is produced in the body naturally. And this is a really important hormone that should never be villainized. It's essential for life. It's essential for everything that we do. And it's something that we really want to bring to the forefront as a beneficial hormone, if we can do it naturally and in a way that's beneficial without some of the negative side effects. So first of all, it is a peptide hormone, and peptide is another hot buzzword that you'll hear nowadays, but it's a peptide hormone, just like insulin, just like leptin. There's several peptide hormones that are familiar to most of you, but it is made in the gut naturally for everybody. It
Right.
does several things that are very, very
Yes.
important. Like Trent said, to help reverse insulin resistance, it will improve our insulin sensitivity. It will shut down that food noise that he was talking about with the Unimate, for example. It'll help lower some inflammation in the body, which is a primary driver of insulin resistance. It'll lower glucagon. Glucagon is the counterpart to insulin. Insulin tries to bring blood sugar down. Glucagon tries to bring blood sugar up. And so to have lower glucagon helps
Right.
with blood sugar regulation. And then also it's going to improve our satiety levels. But again, I really want to point out, and this is a strong driver in the conversation today, there's two things I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the hormone GLP-1 that we produce in the body versus the agonist of the medications that you can take either injectably or orally. Agonist is the opposite of antagonist. And so agonist works to mimic something versus an antagonist would work against it. So these are mimicking what GLP-1 should be doing. They're not the true hormone. They are a synthetic agonist to GLP-1. So where does the agonist fit in? So it's not a peptide hormone that is made in the gut. I crossed that off intentionally. So this is a hormone that you can inject, or an agonist that you can inject, that is what we would call an exogenous, coming from outside of the body, that you can give yourself to do all of the same things: the insulin sensitivity, the food cravings, the inflammation, the glucagon, and the satiety. So they are beneficial because they do all these things, but they're not natural. And that's the point that we're trying to drive home here tonight. So where did they come from and why did we start using them? Well, way back in the day, I've been a dietitian for over 30 years, and I started using some of these drugs probably 20 years ago in patients with diabetes and prediabetes, because they are beneficial for all of those things I just checked off in the list. They were a diabetic medication that has morphed into something else, let's say. So back in the day, the drug that we used very commonly was one called Bydureon or Byetta. It was an injectable, just like the ones we have today, but it's a different formulation and it comes in a lower dose. And so it is a different medication. So here you can see it's exenatide, which is different than semaglutide, which we have in things like Ozempic and Wegovy. And so they are different. They were used for different purposes, and they had very different results. The patients that we had on things like Bydureon back in the day didn't have these massive weight loss results that we're seeing today. So we get into now, and I hope this picture doesn't offend anybody, but everyone sees them all day long, every day on any social media. The weight loss piece of this has far overtaken the diabetes benefit when it comes to what people are focusing on. It has been just astronomically promoted by all the big speakers in the world. So the current medications that we're focusing on are these top four are the ones. So Ozempic and Wegovy are what we call semaglutide. That's the generic name for it. And Mounjaro and Zepbound are tirzepatide. The difference between these medications is that Ozempic and Mounjaro are specific only for diabetes, and Wegovy and Zepbound are specific for weight loss. They did this, the FDA approved this because they knew they'd be able to sell more, in my opinion, but they did this to target different audiences. The piece I want to keep in mind here is, like Ozempic, for example, it has a 2.0 milligram max dose per week. Wegovy, for the weight loss, has a 2.4 milligram max dose per week. And I find it very interesting that the max dose is higher in people that are just working to lose their weight versus people who are trying to cure a chronic disease. But I'm going to point to these numbers later, so I wanted to point them out here a little bit earlier. The point that I like to drive home when I'm talking with my patients who come to me, I have at least half of the patients I see, if not more, come to me for weight loss. That is their main driver to come to see me. And when I have these conversations, I give them full informed consent. And I'm going to say, okay, if you just do diet and exercise, this is what you can expect. If you use supplements, this is what you can expect. If you use traditional medications like metformin, this is what you can expect. Or if you go on to these injectables or even the oral medications, this is what you can expect. And I would say at least 95% of my patients that are on this suffer with constipation. It's a real
Wow.
prominent
Wow.
problem for my patients.
Yeah.
Nausea and vomiting are also extremely common when they're on these medications. But even more severe complications like gastroparesis is when the stomach actually cannot empty, so the food remains in the stomach for too long. This is why you'll hear, like, if you're going to have a surgery, they now ask on the standard form, are you on one of these medications? Because you have to stop it at least 2 weeks prior to your surgery, because you probably still have food in your stomach because of the delayed gastric emptying side effect, or it's actually the true pathophysiology of these medications that's why they work, is that you hold food in your stomach longer. Ileus can be a problem. This is a paralyzation of a portion of the intestinal tract, and this can actually be a fatal complication that can occur. But I'm also now starting to see in some of my patients complaints of vision loss,
Right.
definitely seeing things like bone loss
Yeah.
and muscle wasting. And so I always like to point out side effects of these medications
Yep.
are real, and therefore exploring alternatives
100%.
is something that we're really pretty passionate about.
100%. Yes.
Watch what bread does to your diet goals.
They're lying to you about whole wheat bread.
Yep, they are. It's not.
So I stole this off of Ben. You can all see Ben's lovely bald head over here. He's in Korea right now speaking for Unicity at the moment, and he shared these with me. But when we look at the studies that have been done on these medications and the results that they're having, they're pretty impactful. So this one was a 2-year study of the weight loss version of these medications.
This is crazy.
And what they were looking at was the food noise.
This
What
is
are people
crazy.
craving? What are
Y'all
they
need to pay it. This-
experiencing? And what is this resulting
If you
in
know
when it
somebody,
comes
you
to
gotta
the
share it.
benefit of taking these medications? So at week 20, they actually compared it here to baseline. The 0 number here is baseline. If they had their normal day-to-day prior to any medication cravings, they were at 0. When they started the medication, they had a decrease, obviously, in their food noise, which was great. I'm sure all these people were losing weight. Week 52, that crept back just a little bit, but by year 2, week 104, they were pretty much back to baseline. And this has been probably the biggest problem that we've seen with this medication. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into this. One of other Ben's slides that I just pulled here too was, from these injections with the additional risks, there was a total return of sweet cravings at about the 2-year mark. And so they're not foolproof when it comes to having long-term lasting effect. So what happens when these people stop these medications? And this study goes in and it shows the fact that, yes, over about 2 years, again, this is a 2-year study that they looked at, people were actually starting to stop the medication for a variety of reasons. They didn't feel good, they stopped being effective, they weren't covered by insurance anymore, whatever the reason, these people stopped actually taking these medications. And what happened? And so in this study, they did a 68-week treatment phase. And during this 68 weeks, they noticed significant weight loss compared to placebo, which is sitting up here. So they lost a significant amount of weight. I'm going to just say 50 pounds. Let's say this group of people lost on average 50 pounds in 68 weeks, and then they stopped the medication. And what happened? They regained about 80% of the weight back. Let's say they still had a 10% differential here or a 10-pound differential when it comes back. So they lost 10 pounds overall in this phase, in this period, but regained 40 pounds of it back. Well, what part did they gain back? If we know, and I didn't share this slide, I should have put it in here, but we know that about 40% of the weight loss is not fat. It is lean body mass, whether it be bone or muscle or connective tissue. 40% of this weight loss, clear down here in this 50 pounds, was not fat mass. Well, we all know when we regain muscle, especially as we regain weight, especially if we're a little bit older, it's really hard to regain muscle mass and nearly impossible to regain bone mass. And so there is this reminder of mind the gap. If you lose the weight and regain the weight, it may not be beneficial in the long run because overall percent body fat is the same or worse, while muscle mass and bone density are worse. But GLP-1 hormone is good. This is the one thing I want to say. I'm not villainizing GLP-1 hormone here. GLP-1 hormone is really, really important and really, really beneficial when it comes to what we want to do to improve metabolic health. And so Ben, thankfully, has actually conducted studies in his lab at BYU on this product. And that's why I am in such good support of this product, is because they found with the Unimate, for example, there was a 60% increase in natural production of GLP-1. Huge, huge benefit that we haven't really seen with any other natural supplement out there. The balance that Trent was talking about also is extremely important. The cells in the intestine that actually produce GLP-1 are called L cells. And in Ben's study, it shows that it highlights the importance of dietary fiber, particularly fiber, also protein, to maintain L cell secretion and intestinal integrity. Again, Trent was talking about that. If you have leaky gut or dysbiosis or something along those lines, fiber, prebiotic, probiotic fiber is essential, and that's exactly what balance does for us. But I have two questions, and I've asked these questions to Ben, and I'm going to ask them here. Not that anybody else is going to have the answer either, because we don't, maybe someone does, but my two questions are this. Number one, can someone become resistant to these GLP-1 exogenous
That is a great question.
medications and problems?
That is a
It is a
great
peptide hormone. And some other peptide hormones that I mentioned earlier are insulin and leptin. And we know for a fact you can become very resistant to these. I oftentimes, when I'm talking with my patients, I talk to them about, I use beer as the example. You know, at the beginning of an alcohol journey, one beer will get you a buzz. After a while, you have to have 2 beers. After a while, you have to have 6 beers, and so on and so forth. And that's because you become resistant or tolerant to the effects of the alcohol. Same thing happens with insulin. Same thing happens with GLP-1, in my opinion. I asked Ben this question. We don't for sure know the answer, but you can become resistant. And this is really kind of proven because patients need to increase the dose over time in order for it to remain effective. It's just like having to increase the number of beers you need for a buzz. You have to increase the amount that you're giving of these medications to keep it effective. Same with insulin. My insulin-dependent diabetics, if they stay on a high carbohydrate diet, if they're snacking on sugar all day, they give more insulin, they become more resistant, they need more and more and more insulin over time. Again, I am not villainizing any of these hormones. They're all very, very helpful and critical for health for a healthy life. But we want them in ideal amounts. We don't want them in superhuman amounts. We don't want them above and beyond what they want them to be. And really, when I asked Ben this question, he said, there's no proof, but it's extremely likely that the resistant effect is possible for
They haven't been around
GLP-1.
long enough. There's no way.
There's a new way to get
Love
toned,
this.
and it requires no cardio, calorie cutting, and
Exactly. That's actually what we're talking about.
So my next question is when I give a man, I use this as an example, when I give a man testosterone replacement therapy, it shuts down the testes. He can't make testosterone anymore. Does the same thing happen when I give somebody GLP-1 agonist? Will they stop producing their own GLP-1 hormone? We don't know. The same thing happens with thyroid. If I give someone a thyroid medication, because there's plenty of thyroid hormone in the body, the thyroid doesn't have to make its own thyroid anymore. Does this happen with GLP-1 when we give it exogenously? Again, Ben's answer to this was, I don't know, but it's likely. And so the question then is, does it return to normal after we've given exogenous GLP-1? We don't know.
Right.
Does boosting endogenous meaning our natural production inside the body, does boosting GLP-1 help people come off of these meds and return the body to normal and have the ability to make its own GLP-1 like it's supposed to? And again, my answer and Ben's answer, and I've seen it in practice with my own patients, yes. If a man wants to come off testosterone, I give him something like clomiphene or HCG, and it helps them make their own more. That's where this product really can come into play, is that we can help you make more of your own, even if you shut off your own production by using one of these medications for a period of time. The answer, though, is we just don't know. There's no research out there to prove it, but there's certainly good theories and certainly good questions to leave to the research arm of my team. So just to kind of drive it home, there's two options here. We have synthetic and we have natural. The problem with the synthetic, in my opinion and Ben's opinion, is they are superhuman doses. Yes, you can microdose these and still get great benefit without the side effects. Most doctors, most providers do not microdose these medications. You can do it. I encourage people to avoid superhuman dosing no matter what it is they do. Remember, the side effects are real. They are something that we do want to try to avoid. Things like the vision loss, the gastroparesis, the loss of muscle, the osteoporosis, etc. Now, if we do it naturally, we can optimize these levels, and they're not going to be superhuman doses. We're not going to be able to elevate GLP-1 to the same extent that you can with a medication, but you can optimize them just like we can optimize a whole lot of things like in our metabolic health with diet, lifestyle, and other supplements. There's few to no side effects. We're still going to improve our insulin sensitivity and our glucagon. And yes, you can even do this without any supplements. You don't have to necessarily use the Feel Great system. It just makes it easier. But even just improving protein, lowering insulin, and increasing fiber naturally can improve GLP-1 in a very natural way. So my opinion is, why risk it? There's no reason not to try this product first. It does come with a 90-day money-back guarantee, like the crannies had mentioned before. And so my attitude is why risk it? The conversations I have with my patients on a one-to-one basis is start with the one that is going to do the least harm. If necessary, we progress to the ones that might carry some risk. So there you go, Trent. Oops, there's that one. Thank you, everybody.
All right. So some great points here. And when you got a big problem like insulin resistance, the thing is we've got to have a big solution. That's the whole thing. And that's what Lindsay's talking about. Really, we've got a big problem with insulin resistance. I'm going to put this back up on my screen so we can take a look at it. And if you're dealing with any of these things, I mean, that's huge right down here. If you look right there in that whole wheel, I mean, big part of this is diabetes, insulin resistance, skin tags. How many of y'all are dealing with skin tags, or you know somebody dealing with skin tags? I had a really pain in the rear down in my armpit. How many of y'all dealing with it? It's nasty, right? How many of y'all feel like, man, it's just wrong? And the way I describe it is, it's like you got like a mini storage unit, all that extra glucose, all of the carbohydrates. So when we talk about migraines, we talk about PCOS, you talk about low testosterone right there on the screen, the GLP-1. What do we do about it? When you have a big problem, we need a big solution. And the big solution, we've had 3 options, right? Actually, we've had 2, but now there's a third. We either stay sick, right? We stay with insulin resistance. We take the GLP-1s or the metformin or statin medications, or we seek out an alternative. Now, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, my wife, Dr. G, who we do this channel together, she was diagnosed with prediabetes the very next month. The very next month, she was diagnosed with it. And she got on the phone, called a friend who was a nurse and a diabetes educator that told her about this product right here. And this is in the provider's digital reference. If you're not familiar with that particular thing, I want to show you where you can get it. If you go to pdr.net, all right, this is where I didn't know this even existed for us. There's a book. This is actually the website that you and I can go to. All right, pdr.net. And you can go and type in your medications that you might, you're getting prescribed. It's right there. You type them in there. So metformin, statin, get all the side effects. Well, this was in there. And the nurse said, hey, you need to look this up. And so she did. So she started drinking the tea and the fiber. She reversed her neuropathy and fibromyalgia within just a couple of weeks. And I was watching that happen right in front of me. I saw it I saw her transform right in front of me. So I started doing this May of 2024. And for me, it changed my life. I reversed my diabetes. I lost the weight without having to get on the medications. I was able to lower my triglycerides, my blood pressure, every single thing. This has been the best product on the planet. And when I say it's a product, this is a nutraceutical. So has all the studies that have been done on it from Brigham Young University, from Columbia University, from the University of Sydney in Australia, and the Cleveland Clinic, arguably the #1 heart hospital in the world. All right. All of them have looked at this, studied this, and said the fiber works just like metformin. It works like statin medications. That's what they both have said. And I saw it happen in me. My triglyceride levels, my LDL levels came down. My HDL came up. I stopped snoring. My blood sugar levels got under control. I reversed diabetes right here. This was key to reversing that insulin resistance, which is what is happening. And I didn't know this. And it's frustrating because it doesn't get explained. How many of y'all have had your doctor explain that every time that you're consuming simple carbohydrates, your blood sugar spiking? How many of y'all have had a doctor explain? How many of them actually sit there and explained it to you? How many of your if you've typed yes, if your doctor has explained what's happening with nutrition, with those macros, or one of the gym bros that says calorie in, calories out, they've actually explained what's going on. If they've done that, type yes in the comment or type a Y, because that's frustrating because my doctor didn't do that for me. So understanding that when we, the simplest thing is changing the order that we eat. Now that's been studied at the Ohio State, UCLA, multiple studies that when we start a meal with fiber, then fats, proteins, all right, those all, fiber doesn't spike your blood sugar. Fats don't spike your blood sugar, and proteins have the least amount of spike. So when we eat in that correct order, and that's what this is, and making sure that in every meal you get the fiber. That way, when you're on the go, you can get the fiber. When you're on the go, you get the fiber right here. This is a blend of fiber. This is not Metamucil. All right. This is a 7 blend of soluble and insoluble fibers, from pectin to resistant starches. All right. So that your gut is getting everything you need. And that's what Lindsay was just talking about in this whole thing, in the research that Dr. Ben Bickman has done all the way around, that this changes that. So right here was the biggest game changer right out of the gate. And this is what led me to become a nutrition coach. I wanted to know, why was this working the way that it was? And when you look at the research and the mountain of research, that's what it was. So the second thing was taking the tea, and this is yerba mate. Now, I think this is a concentrated version of yerba mate. How many, if you're familiar with yerba mate, type yes. If you're familiar with yerba mate, this is what stimulates your body's GLP1, the chlorogenic acid. But also, if you're dealing with something like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, this helps to cleanse the liver. We've talked a lot about parasites. People worry about this. When you're metabolically healthy, you create an environment in your body that there's no space for parasites to get in. And so that's a huge part. So the parasites, if you're worried about that, that's one of the best things here. The acid helps to keep your body metabolically healthy. So this is a bronchodilator. It's a vascular dilator. So blood pressure. It's going to help with the breathing. It's going to help with the inflammation in your body. Now, the great part about this simply comes with a 90-day money back guarantee. And I'm going to explain it to you that for me and Dr. G, we've been doing this now. All right. That was my picture. Those of y'all, that was where I was at. This was Dr. G. This has been her transformation during this journey. All right. Can I see your nails? Here, let me show you this one. That's the one that's been boogered up right there. And there's the one on my pinky where I took off part of my pinky. So, yeah, I don't have pretty nails. That's probably really not the best thing to ask me about. But I can tell you that my nails are healthier than ever. Dr. G is the same. By doing the protocol and being on this has been a game changer for us. So this is a key part of reversing insulin resistance. And to do that, the product is really simple. We're talking about, it comes to about $5.40 a day. All right. Roughly on average, depending on where you're at. When you get on subscription, you get 90 of the packets. So you're going to get 60 of the teas. You're going to get 30 of the fibers. You're going to get $70 off. Plus, you're going to get free coaching. That's what Dr. G and I do. I like to say it's included in the price because we do our coaching. You get Dr. G and I as coaches, as nutrition, and we do more than that. She's a provider, all right? So she and I both are have gone through classes. I'm a nutrition coach. She's a doctor. And we specialize with insulin resistance and helping people to reverse the conditions of insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, maybe non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, PCOS, low testosterone. You're dealing with fatigue. You're dealing with the cravings. All right. The tea increases your body's natural GLP1 between 60 and 70%. Again, that's what those of y'all that are coming in now. We had Lindsay Venn on here, dietitian specialist in insulin, talking about the research and study done on the tea, that this, if you drink yerba mate, you're going to get the benefits of that. If you drink green tea or coffees, you're going to get the benefits of being on the tea, and it will help as far as that goes. All right. The fiber, you're going to get the benefits of what fiber does in helping to slow digestion, stimulate your body's more GLP1, every bit of that. So if you've got questions, if you're wanting to order, that's the QR code to get the link. All right. That'll go right there. I recommend doing the 90-day money back guarantee. Your FSA, HSA will help cover that. And it is a game changer. Really. Do you want to be the hero of your story? Does your family need you to be the hero of your story? Because if you're dealing with the chronic disease, I'm going to put this back up again. If you're looking at this right here, all right, if you're looking at this wheel right down here, you're looking at what insulin resistance does. We're talking about the things, heart disease. We're talking about diabetes. We're talking about Alzheimer's disease. We're talking about high blood pressure, hypertension. All of those are in this wheel. They're all right here. And for our family's sake, for our sake, how are we handling that? What are we doing to reverse it? Because if you're on medications, that's not reversing it. When you're on medications, that's not reversing. You're managing the symptoms, but you're not reversing it. You're not moving in that direction. The tea and the fiber, that's what it does. That's what it does. And it's as simple as that. And we've seen the changes. And I'm going to switch back over again, all right, as we've talked a little bit about that. Do you have any questions? Are there any questions about the protocol? It is the easiest thing to do, because all you do is open these up and put them in water, and you're done. You're done. You can see the changes. They're right there. If I can get it to, trying to figure out, for some reason my tablet's not communicating the way that it should be. But when we look at it, I mean, it has changed our lives. For Dr. G and I, this has been our transformation. We have aged in reverse. If there's anything I can tell you, is we've gone in the opposite direction. When we bring down that inflammation, when we take care of those things, when we eat correctly, when we address what we need to address, we reverse the conditions that we have been dealing with, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to head in a different direction. And that direction is to health and wholeness. And that's why Dr. G and I do what we do, and we are doing Healthy Together and Feeling Great. If you're interested in the tea and the fiber, that's the QR code to use. It's also in the link. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. There's all the videos, that the nutrition, the recommendations to back this up, to make those lifestyle changes, to make it easier to deal with those cravings, to deal with those blood sugar spikes. Every time you're spiking blood sugar, insulin increase. We want to bring that back down, so the two are going hand in hand. Because when you are insulin resistant, let's see if I can find my, right? I cannot. I don't know why it disappears from me all the time. Anyway, go get the day and make it golden. Y'all go have an awesome one, whatever it is.